Welcome to this episode of our program Daily Debate. As usual, we will be discussing an important topic. Tonight we'll be speaking about the inauguration of the new Sohag city. Today the President has inaugurated several national projects at Sohag Governorate, of which have been undergoing since 2014 as part of Upper Egypt developments. During the past 8 years, around 415 national projects have been implemented at Sohag Governorate at different sectors, including education, housing, construction, agriculture, industry, transportation, in addition to some of the projects that have been implemented as part of the Decent Life presidential initiative, this the biggest presidential initiative in Egypt's history. Tonight we'll be shedding light on the inauguration of this new city, which is considered one of the new cities, part of the cities that were supposed to be inaugurated during those years. First, the President started with Mansoura, New Mansoura, today Upper Egypt, Sohag, new city, and this is part of the developmental project that is taking place across governorates in the whole of Egypt. While the President, or after the President inaugurated or some of the projects in Sohag, the President gave some of the most important statements, and he gave some of his messages. The President said that Upper Egypt was not marginalized or forgotten, but the state was unable, indicating that the state needed 70 trillion pounds in investments to implement projects to achieve the required development process in the country. The President said that what is being achieved is a success first coming from God, and an attempt to develop solutions in order to be able to confront some of the problems in a non-traditional way. He stressed that he was always enthusiastic about the idea because it can solve an issue that is not resolved by the traditional way. As the President gave his statements on the speech of Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, which preceded the President's statements during the inauguration, the President stated that the Prime Minister talked about a part that was implemented outside the framework of the Decent Life initiative, and another part within the initiative, explaining that the total figure without a decent life amount to 7 trillion pounds, which is a very modest amount in front of the dream that we seek to achieve. President Sisi stressed the need for all of people to respect each other's mind, be objective and honest in assessing and evaluating the reality today's reality, adding that this is in the current reality because the country is not able to do it alone, just as a country whose conditions are not has not been very much able, but there are many ideas, dreams, and many actions and measures that have been taken. The President said that the cost of development in Sohag Governorate amounted to 102 billion pounds, and that and asked about the rest of the governorates and how much would they need for development. The President stressed that everything that is being done now is an attempt to bridge the gap and reach the normal rates for the development process, pointing out that Egypt needs to establish 60,000 classrooms annually to accommodate population increase taking into account that the current numbers of classes are not sufficient for the number of students who are in need to educate, explaining the costs of establishing those classrooms that will cost around 60 billion pounds. The President directed the conversation to some young people who attended the inauguration of some developmental projects in Sohag, saying that he very much appreciated their ideas and dreams, and that could be the reason for a change in the country's whole situation. The President stressed that the financial support for the projects of youth participating in Egypt's Vision 2030 exists and in any amount, indicating that each model of the participating youth projects may need an amount ranging from £1 million to £3 million in order for their ideas to be implemented and succeed as projects. The President continued saying that 6 models of youth may be able to reach 50% of them, and they may reach 100%, and that we only have to dream and strive to achieve the dreams that we believe in, and that is to achieve success. The President also indicated that he is following up with the social media sites and comments on them. The President added that when rather stressed that the amount of £7 trillion that the state invests at the level of the Republic is less than what Egypt actually needs, indicating that the state needs investments of about £70 trillion. One of the issue of population growth and increase. The President said we must always remind each other of the cause of the problem, explaining that the cause of the problem is neither government corruption nor administrative system nor the marginalization. He added that he said that we must pursue our dream and believe that we can achieve them, and he said that Egypt's position will change if we share the pursuit of our dreams as one family, and that the inauguration of the number of projects in Sohag Governorate is just part of the dream. At the end of his speech, the President directed the necessity of having a sign interpreter so that everyone can know what is said on those occasions, since the President was speaking about definitely people with special needs, or how to engage every segment of the society. That was the inauguration. The President during the inauguration has inaugurated a number of projects, the university, the hospital, and even attended a breakfast in one of the villages. Tonight we'll be speaking about the developments that Upper Egypt has seen, this unprecedented development that took place in Upper Egypt, but not just in Upper Egypt, across the governorates of Egypt. We'll be speaking about that with our distinguished guest, Dr. Said Kholi, Professor of Economics. And thank you so much for being with us.
You're very welcome. Pleasure to be here.
The pleasure is all ours. And let me take here your reading into the statements of the President, because usually the President speaks or he takes each event to discuss some of the realities on the ground in Egypt, transparently and objectively. Your reading.
Absolutely, that is the characteristics of our leadership, is transparency, and he's trying to reach for all people of Egypt, not only in Upper Egypt, because Upper Egypt, for example, Sohag, Fayoum, Asyut, the poverty rate is very high over there, And when you develop not only housing or bridges or tunnels across the Nile River to move from east to west and so on, he touched all different means to make the Upper Egypt people happy. For example, in healthcare sector, they open several hospitals and so on. They open when you have a child in Upper Egypt and God forbid he got sick, he moved him to Cairo or Alexandria or other government in order to receive the proper medical care. Now they have a children's hospital in Sohag. It's a big hospital and it's equivalent to Abu Rish we actually have here in Egypt, in Cairo. Also, he upgraded the technological basis in Sohag University. We have one of the biggest event in order to develop the technology for education to reach all different students in Upper Egypt. Also, that is in higher education, in public education. They opened several schools, about 44 schools, not only governmental schools, but language school, international school,
technical
Japanese
ones
schools,
also,
and many technical where they teach vocational training in this school in order to really build a society, build an industry, agriculture. All of that really, we saw it in the ground. It is not just a speech, it's not just news, it is all people, they can see it in the ground. And that is really transparency, and that is governance, and that is why we believe in this president. He can do more and more. And also, let me say, President Sisi, he doesn't have, the sky is not the limit for him. He always seek for the develop high quality of life for our Egyptian, whether in all different government. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Kafr Sheikh, and I saw a new Kafr Sheikh. It is magnificent development over there, especially in the University of Kafr Sheikh. The day before yesterday, I was in Dumyat, where they have a new Dumyat. It's a new city with new development. They have a lot of business open there, a lot of investment opportunity. It was there. Mansoura Gedida also, in Sohag Gedida, Nasyuti Gedida. That is the new Egypt where our president dreams of.
Indeed. As far as we were speaking today, and what we have seen is part of a developmental plan or a plan, a vision for all Egypt, all Egypt's governorate. Today we have seen part of it, which is the new Sohag. Upper Egypt, because Upper Egypt was not very much into consideration at in the past years, or during the past years, but it has seen some, or rather lots of attention, particularly during the past few years. The pace of development in Upper Egypt, how do you view the pace of development?
Let me say, Upper Egypt, it was neglected for the last 30, 40 years. There is, since the 50, where Nag Hammadi, where in Aswan, Kima, for example, and since that time, we didn't see any development in Upper Egypt. Most of the young generation of Upper Egypt population, they immigrate from their government to the city or Cairo or Alexandria and so on. We don't see that right now. Why? Because in the last 8 years, we start to make a mega development, not only in infrastructure, in terms of roads and tunnels, bridges and so on, but also with building industrial base and agriculture base. And that is what Egypt needs. The whole investment in Upper Egypt, I believe the return on this investment will see it in a very near future in terms of reducing the unemployment rate in Upper Egypt. They have a lot of young generation in Upper Egypt, and they are having a lot of industrial business, industrial factory started already in Upper Egypt, and this it will help to reduce the unemployment rate, and also with the subsidy the government provide for Upper Egypt people, it will improve their high quality of life. The decent initiative which we have in Upper Egypt, it proved to be the state of the art, and it became the Decent Life project. It was a model where most of the country and in United Nations took it as a model for enhancing and improving the quality of life for your citizen.
Indeed.
I believe that is a mega plus for the Egyptian leadership and for the Egyptian government.
Yes. Before we continue on with our discussion, let me here shed some light on the developments that was achieved in Sohag Governorate during the past 8 years. Let's watch this report.
During the past 8 years, up to 415 national projects have been implemented at Sohag Governorate at different sectors, including education, housing and construction, agriculture, industry, poultry, infrastructure and roads, tourism, health, roads and transportation, in addition to the projects that have been implemented as part of the Decent Life initiative in the various cities of the Governorate. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi inaugurated several national projects on Thursday at Sohag Governorate, of which have been undergoing since 2014 as part of Upper Egypt development. And as part of Haya Karima presidential initiative, a total cost of £60 billion projects took place in different centers and villages of Sohag, targeting about 65% of the population in the Governorate. Among the national projects that will be inaugurated is the social housing project in the new city of Sohag, which consists of 6,720 housing units. The new Sohag city is located on an area of 30,351.01 acres within the territory of Sohag Governorate, as it is expected to contain a number of national projects within the framework of achieving targeted development and serving citizens in Upper Egypt. At the education sector, many primary and languages schools have been established in various villages in the Governorate of Sohag, as well as the new Sohag University. Also, the agricultural sector is considered to be one of the important economic pillars for the people of Sohag, as high-quality seeds were provided to farmers for developing their crops. A site on an area of 5 acres has been allocated in Al-Kawthar district for the establishment of a sifting and seed production station, the first of its kind in Sohag, to contribute to the provision of various high-quality seeds to farmers. Also, the Tahta silo was established in Sohag Governorate with a capacity of 60,000 tons, with the aim of preserving strategic stock of wheat. And within the goal of lining 123 canals with a length of 90 linear kilometers in Sohag Governorate at a cost of approximately 1 billion, more than 21 canals with a length of 335 kilometers were lined. The government have paid attention to the industrial sector in Upper Egypt during the past 8 years in Sohag. On an area of 65 acres, the small industries complex in West Girga was established and fully equipped with all needed units, and a number of factories and production lines were established in the industrial zone in Al-Kawthar neighborhood in several industries. And in the health sector, many health buildings in Sohag Governorate have been established. Sohag Governorate had a large share of projects regarding the development of roads and bridges. And in the field of tourism, Sohag's archaeological areas were developed including the development of Marsa Nasser at a cost of £468,000. The new city is one of the third-generation cities of the new Urban Communities Authority, characterized by a strategic location, as it is considered the western gate of Sohag Governorate.
Right, welcome back, and back to you, Dr. Kholi, and we were speaking about the development that took place in Upper Egypt. Some people would say, why we're continuing with new cities at the backdrop of the current development worldwide and the current economic situation of the whole world, which has its own repercussions on us. How significant is that? How do you view those steps?
Remember, it is not an Egyptian problem, it is a worldwide problem. We've been facing COVID-19 for almost
2 years.
Our third year now. And still there, it's not ended, the crisis of COVID-19, and that's not an Egyptian, that's a worldwide symptoms. Also, last year when the war of Russian-Ukrainian war, it has a significant effect on supply chain for the rest of the world. And with this kind of war, it really it made a barrier for transportation from the wheat supply, for example, which affected the entire world, not only Egypt. I will give you an example. For example, for Europe, in England, in Britain, in France, in Italy, in Greece, in most of European nations, and even in the States, they suffer from the food supply and for their production system because of the shortage of supply worldwide. So what we can see, it is not really an Egyptian problem, but it's a worldwide problem. It has an effect on Egyptian economy. Yes, it has. It is significant effect. It is significant effect. But remember, our international indicator, it is not an Egyptian indicator. It is the World Bank. It is the International Monetary Fund, Fitch models. All of these show the
different financial agencies.
So it's a very respected financial institution. Should Egypt in the positive side up to this point of time? Of course, we have a hard time, but remember we faced a harder time than that during 67 war, and we went through it, and in 73, in the 80, and so on. But the Egyptian people is really, as the president said today, I'm counting for the people who are united. Yeah.
No, and we've seen even difficult times between 2011 to 2013. Remember
that it was a big one also. But remember, we went out of this as a united people, and we are suffering. Yes, we are. Increase the price. There is inflation. But at the same time, the president, he knows that, and he working very hard. Remember, Egyptian economies, they have a limited resources, and we have a very large population, and in any crisis in the world, it affects in a way or another in our food supply and in our industrial materials. And
exactly.
So on.
Hence, my question is, how would the world look at Egypt while inaugurating new cities, as the whole world is going through inflation and a disrupted economy and all this? How do you view that? How essential were those cities for the economy of Egypt?
Let me talk from not my perspective or from Egyptian perspective. I have people visiting me from outside, from the States, from some European country, from the Gulf country. Friend, when they come to Egypt, and the first thing they say to me, we see a different Egypt every time we come. So my question to them, for better or worse, they told me there is a huge development in Egypt right now, in terms of transportation, in terms of highways, in terms of bridges, in terms of power supply. All of that, we don't, if you compare Egypt before 2012 and Egypt now, and people forget that. We went through 2 revolutions, if you remember, and our reserve system in Central Bank of Egypt was at the lowest. Now we have a reserve in the Central Bank of Egypt.
And it increased 2 days ago, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
and
just yesterday.
And it will. And remember what they are doing with Decent Life Initiative. As I told you, that is a model where United Nations recognize this model and try to implement it in the needy country worldwide. Remember also, we are not working in social welfare, we are working in workfare. Workfare, it means what? You build a new city, you build a new settlement, you build a new time, new towns, in order to attract business and life and job opportunity for the people who live over there. If we are not really taking care of the majority of Egyptian people in Upper Egypt, they have lived in poverty and ignored and neglected for the last 30, 40 years. Now, when we have a president really took an initiative and stand for these people. For example, we had a breakfast with these poor people today, and really he's very close to the whole people in Egypt. And when you develop Upper Egypt, it has a lot of natural resources in Upper Egypt, and really we need a new mindset to manage these resources in the future, and it will happen.
Definitely it will happen. It will happen with the hands and minds of Egyptians
Absolutely.
altogether, yes. If we speak about the plans or the such development we've been seeing was the result of an integral plan for the development in all the governorates of Egypt, or all governorates across Egypt. And this national strategic plan had different dimensions, the economic one, but also the social one. How was the state able to make this balance? And when we speak about this balance, we're speaking about security, economy, development, and at the same time, social burdens.
Remember, when they developed Egypt Vision 2030, they didn't take one track and leave the other track. We are really working on all different tracks, whether it's security. If you recall, in 2012, 13, 14, before President Sisi take the power, it was, we don't have security and we don't have safe environment. You remember we used to protect our houses during 2011, 2012, we were in the street to protect our life. It was no, people forget that. And in
people
order
forget
to,
indeed.
Absolutely. In order to attract local investment and foreign direct investment, number one, economic stability, number one, political stability, number one is safety. And in order to invest, you have to have a safe environment in order to protect your investment. In order to invest, to attract foreign direct investment, you need logistic, and that is the development of the new highways in Egypt, which is really, when I used to travel to the States or in China, for example, before I used to say we would love, I was dreaming to have some half of the road. Now we have 8 lanes road in one direction in highway from Cairo to Daba, for example, super highway. I traveled a couple of days ago with Banah al-Hurr, for example. It is magnificent highways road, and all of that we talk about logistic. Logistic, it is a very important ingredient in order to attract foreign direct investment. And also to attract foreign direct investment, we must have a power supply. People forget 10 years ago or 9 years ago, we used to have power shortage for hours in a daily basis. Now we don't have a power shortage, and we are exporting our power surplus to our neighbor country. People forget. And remember, if we really forget that and we don't see what we see in the ground right now, it means you are blind. Another things which attract foreign direct investment, it is the procedures, and that is what the government working on right now. And in my opinion, we have to work very hard in order to ease up the process for attracting foreign direct investment. We should really work very hard to reduce the lead time for new project, new foreign direct investment in Egypt, 2 hours more, at most 4 days. In order to, we have to ease the process, we have to ease the procedures in order to attract more and more foreign direct investment.
Here I have to say that the United Nations has placed Egypt's Super Egypt Development Project as the best practice towards achieving the goals of Sustainable Development Goals. Here or today we have seen the President, part of his inauguration was the inauguration of some of the industrial complexes in different sectors. So we've seen small industries complex in West Girga. We have seen an industrial zone in Al Kawthar, in the neighborhood of Sohag Governorate. We have seen universal factory for manufacturing the micro cartoons and papers, for an instance, the ammonia industry gas factory, and I mean here there were several projects in that the President has inaugurated. That is beside definitely the hospital, the schools, and the university that the President. How do you view first the UN and how it assessed development, particularly in this area, and how do you view the on the ground, which we have seen today ourselves, developments?
Remember, feeding industry is very important. We have to work in both sides. We can have mega project, heavy industry, which remember 4 years ago when he went to Eastern Europe, is to attract foreign direct investment from Eastern Europe in order to build heavy industrial base here in Egypt. And it will be in full operation by the end of this year. And that is a mega project. For example, the black sand factory in Kafr Sheikh, that is one big thing. But beside that, you need a small business, which I don't call it as a small and medium enterprise, I call it as a feeding industry.
Yes.
A feeding industry, which it can be localized in many different parts around this mega industry in order to supply part for mega industry. And I believe that is the future. We are going to see a lot of industrial feeding industry. And I always say we should build more factory than malls. Remember, before 2012, we saw a lot of malls, a lot of compound. It was a real estate economy. Now we are talking about real economy, industrial economy, agricultural economy, educational economy, healthcare economy, and all of that, it is really for homeland security in Egypt and national security of Egypt. To really made in Egypt is a very important issue, and that is what we're looking for in the future, to produce, not consume.
Announcing the new republic has demanded lots and lots of heavy work until we reach what we are reaching today. And as the president said today, we need more and more, and we have only achieved 13% of what we are dreaming of, just 13%.
10%.
He spoke about 13, the president here, but if I may ask you here, what are the measurable indicators? And when I'm speaking about the measurable indicators, I'm not speaking about our assessments, but rather the world assessments in terms of indicators that show that Egypt is on the right track despite all the difficulties that we are passing by.
The indicator, it is really published in a monthly basis. We have what we call it as Global Competitiveness Index. And if you compare our Global Competitiveness Index, Egypt, and not only Egypt, for the whole world in all different sectors, whether it's agriculture, industry and housing, and they measure also the quality of life, education, healthcare. We see a lot of improvement in our ranking before we use in the tail of this ranking. Now we are moving upward toward the first 100 country and so on in many different global competitiveness index. I would like to let you know I am really the president of American Society for Competitiveness, which it measures the competitiveness index worldwide. I am really handling the Middle East and North Africa in that society. It's a huge association in the States. It's called American Society for Competitiveness. And when we talk about competitiveness, we talk about really we should focus in two major things. We should focus in education. We have to upgrade the level of our education. The President Sisi is talking about fourth industrial revolution, and our university should really focus on new technology, new how in order to cope with this advances in artificial intelligence and so on. We saw a lot of new measures in many universities right now.
Industry, trade.
Excuse me?
Industry and trade and...
industry, agriculture, education, and healthcare. We have a healthy people, highly educated people, vocational training, technical training. It is very important. And remember, we have a lot of branches from World University now operate in the new capital of Egypt.
Indeed. I'll leave it at here, and I'll leave it here at your recommendations. And Dr. Said Kholi, Professor of Economics, thank you so much for being with us today.
It's a pleasure to be with you, and Happy New Year for you and for our viewer.
My pleasure, and Happy New Year to you and all your beloved. And I guess that takes us to the end of this episode of our program debate. Next debate would be next Sunday. And I guess I have to say here, a Merry Christmas to our beloved partners in life. A Happy New Year for all the people around the world. Many thanks for watching.